Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel, and we're back at the new Auto Shack working on the Caddy show car project. You saw in the last episode, we had the Audi TT 1.8 litre turbocharged engine fully up and running, all bled up with coolant and sounding fantastic. Engine wise, we are pretty much fully complete now. Just a few little jobs to tick off. I got all the wiring finished, so we had lights, indicators, wipers, even had the horn working. We now have just about got a fully working, running, driving car. So as we're so close, in this episode, I plan on getting the brakes finished. Because it's all very well going, but you need to stop. Many episodes ago, you saw us fit these Porsche calipers on the front. They're from a 986 Boxster, and with some Epitech mounts, they all bolted straight on, no mods needed. We used Corrado G60 discs, and we just had to run a little spacer to fit them behind the Porsche wheels. So these have all been here, sitting very pretty, but they weren't actually connected to anything. I did run this one brake line, because that runs behind the engine, before we put the engine in, just to make things a bit easier. But it's not terminated anywhere, and none of the other brakes have got any brake lines. We've got Mark II Golf GTI rear discs on the back, and we've got a transporter master cylinder. So none of these bits are going to plumb straight together. It's going to take some Super Ron action. And talking of Super Ron, we've just got our new uniforms. And as you can see, we are fully branded. We are still Auto Shack on the back. Welcome to Super Ron. So let's show you all the bits I've been ordering. So like I said, we've upgraded the rear brakes from drums to Mark II Golf discs. So that's all on, the handbrake's on with the little adapters from rectification. But these are floating calipers, which mean they move, so we can't use the rigid brake lines that usually go to the middle on the drums. They usually go to these points here and then hook up on flexies. The other thing we've got to take care of is the bias to the rear. The auto load leveling bias has now gone, because that's no good for the drums. And then the lines used to run along here, along the bottom, in this little channel, hook over, and then go all the way to the front on all these little pegs. And then it popped up through that hole up to the master cylinder at the top. On the Mark IIs, they have a small little flexi to the beam, and then a copper pipe, and then another flexi to the body. I think I'm going to cut that out on this. Instead of having copper pipe in the middle, I'm just going to run full flexis on the rear. So we can make them ourselves here. So we've got lots of little banjo fittings and everything we need. I've worked it all out. We've got this flexi that will go to the body, then that will come to this little T-piece on the banjo, and that will go to these fittings, and then that will go to the caliper one end. We'll make the braided line to length, and then that will go to the other one, the other end. On the front, with the Porsche brakes, I found Hell do actually do direct replacement for Porsche calipers. Porsche fittings one end, and Mark I fittings the other end. And on the rear, I'll just assemble these. We've got our anchor points here. So that'll go to the rear beam and then up to the end. We've got this banjo bolt, which will go in there. It's all going to be a little bit clearer once I get it together. And we've just received the pads for the front as well. They are Porsche Boxster pads, but not the ones for the calipers. Because we're using 280mm discs, they advise using different calipers, which are slightly more shallow. So we've got these TRW ones, which are for the 996 calipers, which are a 2.7 on the rear. And they just fit in a lot nicer. So they meet the disc there, line up perfectly on there, no overlap, and then also on the inside they line up perfectly with the face of the disc there. We've also got a new header tank without the level hole, so that'll look a lot cleaner in the bay, and I've got a couple of boost pipes to finish off the main boost line as well. So let's start making some bits. So this is the main flexi that goes from the body to the beam, and this is what's going to go up and down as the suspension travels up and down, so that's good anchor points because we don't want anything pulling on that. And then we've got this banjo and this little T-piece, which will go on here, like that. And then we've got the little elbows. These are 3/8 by 24 TPI, and they'll screw on there and go to the left and the right, like so. And I just want to check clearance on full drop, so I'll let all the air out just to make sure that doesn't touch, but I don't think it does go that high. So that's it, completely aired out. It won't go any lower than that ever, even on full drop. If you can just see through there, beam doesn't touch the body, and none of the fittings touch the body either. So that's going to be a-okay. So let's make up some brake lines. On the calipers, we're going to put banjo fittings on, just like they do from factory with the short little brake lines. Just ours are going to go all the way to the middle. And I think I'm going to angle them, probably coming forward a bit to give us a little bit of slack. So when you do take it off, they'll be able to move and they'll go all the way to there. These brake lines are just like the PTFE fuel lines, just a lot smaller. They were -6 and these are -3, but it's the same principle. You just got the inner and outer of the braid, you put the little collet on and join them all together. So you put the outer on, make sure that's on before the end gets flared out. And then you put your little collet on, that goes between the outer and the inner. That PTFE line, and then this bit just goes through, keeps it from crushing, and this locks it all together. So we'll do that up and get it on. Very nice, just like so. So let's cut the other end to length. Like I said, I'm going to run this with a bit of a curve in it, which will allow us to take the caliper off if we ever want to change the pads or have to move anything. So that'll just give us a little bit more room there. So then if we measure this up and get this in line with our fitting, that's where we're going to mark, just there, and then whip it off with a grinder. And that's the other end of the fitting all on. So let's measure up the other one. Just about there. These are the pads that Epitech, who make the adapters, say to use with the 280mm brakes. So that's the part number there. GDB 1757, so they're the pads you want to fit the 280mm discs. So that's what we're going to use. Nice quality TRW items. And to take care of the rear bias we talked about earlier, because we're now running rear discs and we've got a completely different master cylinder anyway, we've got this adjustable Wilworth brake bias. So we can adjust the pressure, go into the rear, just with this little knob. We can set it up on our brake rollers. So we'll just put this in a convenient place, because once we set it, it shouldn't ever need to be touched again. And that just allows us to fine tune the rear braking. I want this tucked away so it's not fiddled with or messed with. So we're going to put it right down here in the corner. And then we can put some riv nuts in and that will bolt itself on. Nice and discreet and out the way. And now we've got another A to B point to connect to, so this will go back to the beam and forward to the master cylinder. So at the front, at the master cylinder, I've just took the airflow meter off to give me a little bit more room, and the transporter master cylinder has got some pretty big fittings on it, bigger than normal Mark 1 and Mark 2, which is 12 by 1mm, these chunky boys, and they slot in there nicely. So now we've got all our points to connect to, let's get some brake lines out. Here is our handy brake flarer, so remember put the union on always. We just line this up, give it a push, and it gives you the perfect flare every time. And I've just bent the front one up. This goes from the master cylinder with the big 12mm, and it bends round to the T-piece, which is a 10mm. So that will fit in there nice. And that wiggles in, and then just hides and tucks to that T-piece under the servo, so you don't even see it. And here it is from underneath, so you can see it follows the contour of the servo, tucks away, nice and hidden. So now if we carry on this brake line round, we're going to the Hell brake lines, so that goes into the Porsche caliper nicely that end. Got all the fixings to hold onto the strut, and then it terminates on the body on the factory point, so we just got to chop this to size and flare it on there, and then the same on this side. And just making a start on the rear, got a couple of bends in, so that'll come out of the master cylinder, wiggle down the servo, so we've just got to form the rest of this and slot it in there. Oh, fits in there nicely, follows the other one down, so let's make it form underneath. Bit of a zigzag, 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 that should get it under the servo. Let's try it back in. Time for another reel of brake lines. And I said in the other video where we started on brake lines, this is the stuff we use, the copper and nickel, 90%, and we use this because it's guaranteed against the effects of weather and seasonal road salt. With the copper, Often it goes pretty green and manky after a while of being on the road. It just doesn't look that good. But the good thing about copper is it's really easy to form. You can bend it just with your fingers, whereas this stuff is a lot harder to bend. Like you need proper formers. It doesn't actually bend on its own compared to the copper. You can bend into any shape you want, but because it does stay so nice, that's why we use it on the show builds. So let's now go from this hole. We've got to go up across the chassis legs and then join on to our flexi at the back. And the back one already all flared with its fitting. Let's get this on. Put on a little bit of sealer around the hole. On the P-clip. And then the rivet. Nice and secure. Underneath we are all done. Comes along, follows the standard path, and then sneaks back in the car, comes back out, follows the standard path back to the flexi. So let's go and sort out what's happening inside. Alright, so here's our two pipes poking through. Bottom one's from the front, top one's goes back to the rear. So this is out, this is in, so we'll loop that one to there, and zigzag that one to there. And for the flares on the car, we've just got this handy little handheld one. It's actually a hydraulic one, so you don't have to put a lot of force in. So it saves you wrestling with it and mangling all the brake line up. Off, slides off. And there is your flare. Now we'll just put that up to there. And on. So it's got the flexi going to the Porsche brakes, secured on the strut, and then it's got its anchor point in there. And that hooks up to the line we made before. And that is all four corners now connected up to the master cylinder. So I think we're about time to put some fluid in it. So we'll get the reservoir back on, fill it with fluid, and give these a bleed. We've got a Mark II reservoir going onto the transporter master cylinder. This is the only thing we haven't seemed to be able to find a new one of. We want a nice clean bottle to match the expansion tank here, but it has got a part number on it, 192611307, but we can't seem to find a new one. So we'll put this one on here for now, bleed it all up, and then if we do find one in the future, we can just swap out this, and as long as the level doesn't go past the master cylinder, we won't have to re-bleed it. So let's get this on and get some fluid in and try and get it out of all four corners. All right, don't want to take any chances. I've got that all wrapped up. Oh, it's going somewhere, not on the floor. Just open up a rear caliper. It's got somewhere to go. See if we get any fluid. And now I'm going to pressurise up the system and pump some fluid through. Put about 20 psi in. That'll do to start. And I can hear bubbles at the back. So I'll continue this round all four corners. It should bleed up pretty easy. Check for any leaks. No, all looking good. All the rear beams good, all the braided lines. All coming out where it should come out. And the other side, even though these are on a T, just get it right to all the corners. Let's try the fronts. On the Porsche 4-pots on the front, we've got two bleed nipples because they're two separate calipers almost, and they're going to take a lot of fluid because these are huge. So we'll bleed out this one, and then we'll bleed out this one, and then move on to the other side. Hook our pot up. Nice thing about being brand new calipers, everything is all nice and loose. Open this one up. Lots of air squirting out. Here comes the fluid. And then do the outer. Comes all the air. Being a new system, we'll probably have to go around a couple of times. Fluid comes in here, down, along the link bar, and then up this side. So we have to bleed both sides. And obviously we've got to be super careful around the caliper as well, because we don't want to mess that up. And being under pressure with the tank full, that keeps our reservoir full. So we don't have to worry about that. Let's go for the last corner. Okay, let's give the back a little squirt. Let's see if we've got a pedal. Release the pressure. And try the brakes. And we have a nice firm pedal. Brakes are all bled and ready. So next up is the clutch. You saw in a previous episode, quite early on, we did the hydraulic clutch conversion. And the braided line goes along, out, and then comes down to the slave cylinder. So I've got our bottle on. Then for the reservoir, this is going to sit up in the glove box. So I've just left it a little long and we'll poke that in the glove box. So we'll put some fluid in there, pump it through. Hopefully we'll have a clutch ready as well. Put some fluid in. A bit tricky to bleed because it is such a small reservoir, but once it's all together, it's not too bad. Pedal a little pump. Sucking it in. I just had to swap tools. I had to get the Super Sucker 3000 out because I wasn't able to pump it up because we couldn't put the pressure pot on top of the reservoir just because it's so much smaller than a standard one. And now we have a nice firm pedal. Our fluid pot is full, so we're just about to ready to test the clutch, see if it will go through the gears. But before I fire it up, I just want to address one last leak that we have, which is coming from one of the original Caddy parts. The valve that controls the heater matrix is leaking. It's just coming out of this pivot here. But we have got a brand new one to go in, so I'll just swap that over. And the other thing we were looking for was the sensor to go in the header tank, so we could close that circuit up and pressurise it all up. But what we found out, this is the FEBI number of 02205, the FEBI number 02136 doesn't have the hole in it. So we're going to swap this bottle over, because we're not using the sensor, so there won't be a weird sensor doing nothing in the top. So that's a direct swap. Let's get that on, and then we can bleed it up, and then we can pressurise up the coolant system and run it until the fan kicks in, which we couldn't do last time because we still had the open hole. Let's see if we can sneak this out without too much mess. It is pretty much the highest point of the circuit. I can actually see the end of this one has broken off. So maybe that was where the leak was coming from as well. Should have an end on it, like that. Right, let's dig that out of that hose and swap them over. Right, valve back on. Now, let's see if we can swap this without making a mess. Much better. All right, let's get all this dressed up and then we're going to fire it up. Let's fill the new bottle back up. Oh, little dribble. Check the oil. Bang on. Right, I think we are ready to fire this up. Right, jump pack is on. Boost pipes are on. I think go for a fire. Wipers work. So let's see if it'll go into gear. We have gears. Fourth. Fifth. Water circulating nicely, no bubbles. So it's all bled up. So in a minute we'll put the cap back on and then see if we can get it up to pressure. Looking cool. And just had the fan cut in. I've had it connected up to the computer watching it, so it just went over to about 102, and that's when the fan kicked in. That is perfect. I'll cool that down nicely. I just had it up and running for about 15-20 minutes. It all seems good. All the brake lines seem fine. I've been pumping the brakes a bit just to make sure there's no leaks. And they're all looking good going down. The fuel system been spot on. Our little screamer pipe performing perfectly. And we got no leaks. Coolant leaks at the back, now all solved. All the brake lines, perfect. Anything we're still missing, we haven't got the little rattle pads that go in here yet, but the pads are in there. Just stops then clonking when you brake. But they're all good. The fan's been kicking in and out perfectly. I think we are good. If you remember way back to episode 1, this actually came to us as a non-runner. The original diesel engine that was in it, the cam belt tensioner had failed, it fell off, the cam belt fell off and destroyed the engine, which was the starting point why he wanted to do this conversion. So I've never actually driven this car, so it's all very well seeing the wheels go round. I want to see this thing move, so let's stick the wheels on and take it for a little drive. And we are off the ramp, back down on the wheels, being held up by its own suspension. So we have just got the air ride pumped up as high as it can go at the moment, but we're all on, brakes are on, engine's all together, the coolant's held pressure nicely. The owner popped down this week and he's bought an air filter, so we are fully legit now. So let's see if this will move, because then that does signify it is a proper car. Right, steering wheel is connected to the wheels. Well, with that triumph of it actually becoming a car again, I think I'm going to wrap this episode up here. All the brakes seem absolutely spot on, no sponginess on the pedal, so they're all bled up nice. Once we get it a bit more together, we're going to put it on our MOT brake rollers and set up the rear bias with that wheelwood adjuster, so it'll all be perfectly balanced on the car. We've still got a few little tinkering bits to do, like that boost pipe to finish off, and then we're going to be on to the air ride system, so we'll be doing a full build in the back for that. But as a car, it is complete again. We could almost put the wings on, dress it up and put it in for an MOT. The interior is still at the trimmers at the moment. He's getting his Porsche seats all retrimmed. So when they're back, we can get fresh carpets in, we can put the seats, the dash and finish it off the inside as well. But it's really coming together. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're only just finding it today, we have a full build playlist on this from episode 1, stripping the car completely down, restoring the underside, fitting the 4-link air suspension, fitting the engine conversion, and they are all just as detailed as this brake video. Also, we have got the Caddy crew merchandise. You can get hoodies, stickers to show you are part of the Super On Caddy crew. So make sure you give this video a like. Be sure to tune in next time because we have got a lot more fun-filled videos for you guys to watch. But until then, make sure you have fun.